Hey, this is Kenny with RK3 Designs. You got me this week. Sorry about your luck. But one thing I am going to show you is how we did a shower from start to finish. Stay tuned and enjoy the video. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to template the shower walls with foam. And there's different ways that you can do this. You can do it with templating material, or you can do it with the foam boards itself because they're lightweight. I like to use the foam itself. That way it's a true, accurate reading. When you leave location, you know it's gonna be right, and you do all the cutting now and you're gonna save yourself plenty of time afterwards. And then all you have to do is just pour it. So we're in a new construction. As you can see here, the shower is here. Right, so I'm gonna take my measurements. I'm gonna make sure that the walls are straight as possible. And then from there, we're gonna cut the foam. We'll cut the foam in there, and then we're gonna start installing it. Okay, so I like to put the back wall, cut that one to fit, and then I'll do the left and right in this shower. Okay, what I like to do is I like to use a 6-foot level. If you don't have a 6-foot level, you could probably still get away with a 4-foot, but this is just gonna give you a better reading of how the wall is really, if it's really plumb. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna check the corners. Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check and see there's just a little gap there. There's really next to nothing on that, and it's level. There's no gap. So that would be the main thing you're checking for, because sometimes if the wall's bowed, you're gonna have to cut it to fit. But at the same time, this one is not that important, because what it's gonna happen is that this other piece is gonna cover it, and it's 1 inch thick. So, you know, you could get away if you have a little gap. So I like that. I'll take my measurements. So when you're measuring, you wanna make sure that you take a couple measurements on this. Like what I do is I'll take one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. That way you could get a good variance of what you could get away with. And at this one, it's 34.5. Up here, it's about 34 5/8. So there is a little bow right here, but that's something that you don't even have to worry about. So what I decided I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go 7/6. That way it gives a little bit of the sheetrock exposure, but not a whole lot. So we'll cut them at 7/6 and tall, and then we'll take our measurements after that. So let's go cut this back piece now. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna measure 34.5. So I'm gonna go flush with here, then I'm gonna make the level plumb. So now I got a straight line right here that I can measure off of. Thirty-three. We got a little bow in here, but I think it'll be all right. So we're gonna cut both of them at 33. They look really good at that. They match up to the line. I think we'll be good. So what I'm gonna do after I cut, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna push it up against these two fixtures. And that's gonna give me the exact center where I don't have to measure off of anything. I can just cut what I need to cut, and boom, boom, you're done. 2 holes, super fast. The other one is just put it up there. Then we'll be done templating. That's how fast it is. Say 33 inches. Seven, 6. So what I'm gonna do, make sure, is I'm gonna put it at the bottom where it needs to go. And then I'm gonna hit it right where it goes. And I'm just eyeballing this line here, and everything looks good. Everything is butted up against that side. So now, so look, you can see right here, it made the circle and it made an indentation right there. So now I know I can measure this, which is 4 by 4. And then I can measure 4 by 4 off of the center of that, and then just cut around that. So I did forget my hole saws, so what we're gonna do is use a multi-tool, and it'll be just the same. So let's go ahead and cut those and then see how it fits. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go 2 by 2. Well, we're gonna get the center, and then we're gonna go 4 by 4. Okay, so now you can see I made a square. I'll just trace it out and go from there. Okay, everything looks good, 4 by 4. So we'll cut that out. It's a little crooked, but it'll work. The escutcheon plate will take care of that. All right, so there's the size of the hole that we need. And so all I'm gonna do is just go boom and just kind of trace it out with some flat pieces, and that'll work also. All right, let's go see how it fits. And then it fits all the way up, perfect. What I like about this, as you can see, it's very tight. That escutcheon is gonna cover all these little lines anyways, so that's not that big of a deal. And then right here, fit perfect. Got the cut, everything fits really tight. All the seams are tight. And now all I gotta do is put the fiber mesh on top, and then just to seal the fiberglass on there. And then we're gonna show you how to do that also. All right, so I got the shower panels in the shop now. We were gonna put a 1 by 4, as you can see here, for a glass door, but Rhonda decided to change, and we're gonna just use a curtain rod. So instead of using this 1 by 4 and wasting all that wood, I'm just gonna go ahead and add just an 8-inch piece right here in the middle, and then I'm just gonna inset it into the foam with the router, and that way that'll take the place, so we have something to screw to once we're all done pouring. So I'll show you how we do it. All right, so we just did the other side. We routed that out. That piece of wood is gonna fit in there. We're gonna use some quick coat. That way it'll set up fast, and then we'll be able to pour the mesh on top with 3 ounces. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna mix up the quick coat, A and B. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. We're gonna mix 16 ounces for both pieces of foam, and I'm gonna use the thickener that we have right there. So let's go ahead and mix it up. You wanna mix it up for about 2 minutes. Put a little thickener in there, that way it doesn't run as much, and it'll hold itself and stay where it needs to stay. So what we like to do is pour B first, because it's a little thinner. And I'm gonna go to 8 ounces. Okay, so now we're gonna mix for about 2 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and put some thickener in it. It all depends how much you stick in there, obviously, right? So you can see, probably should have used a bigger glass, but we'll get that pushed down in there, and you can see how it's making it thicker already. So that's about a good consistency. So what I like to see is when we're doing this is when you pour it up and it kind of, you can see where it kind of holds up on itself. That's about the consistency I like to have it. It's not too runny, but it'll kind of hold itself. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is pour a little bit at the bottom and then insert the piece of wood, and then we'll cover it. Then I'm gonna push it down and squirt all that epoxy off. Kind of overdid it on the epoxy, didn't I? We'll leave it high, and then we'll just sand that down. So the good thing about this is that it encapsulates all the wood, so you're not gonna have to worry about anything ever getting into it. I'm gonna have to get something heavy to hold that down. Okay, so this 20-pound weight's gonna hold it down. Now I'm just gonna smooth it out under the plastic. Make sure that we get plenty of coverage. I'm just gonna fill some more of this up. That way we don't have too many voids. We'll let that sit for a good hour and we'll come check it. All right, so you can see it's been about a little over an hour. And the reason why I put this plastic down is because what I like about it is it peels right off and it won't stick. And now what I can do is I can come and I can sand this down nice and flush, and that'll be sealed in there nice and pretty. All right, so we're gonna use an 80 grit sanding disc on this angle grinder. This one is a little bit worn out, which I kind of like. That way it won't be so aggressive when I take this off. And the edges, it's not gonna matter so much, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a rock edge all the way around on each side. And so it'll be good if I do mess it up a little bit on this side. Okay, so you can use a couple different ways you can make the rock edge. You can use this sanding disc and do it, and then you can have these, you can use these Kutzall carving disc. They make all different kinds. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just use this one. I'll show you with this one a couple hits. So it just all depends on what kind of look you're gonna want. Let's see how the other one looks. Then we'll make a decision which one's better. I had to leave a couple of the pads on there just so it would lock in place, and then so it would make it turn. So let's try this out. Woo! This is aggressive. One thing to notice is this is very aggressive, and this is the light grinding disc that they have. So you got to be careful. Take your time, take a couple little swipes, that way you can get used to it. And then if you want to get more aggressive, well, then you always can. And then what we're going to do after this is we're going to put Bondo, and you'll see here in a second. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set the 3 pieces together on the top and line it up, and then just kind of mark it out so it looks more uniformed. The other thing I got to think about is that these panels are going to be 1 inch on the inside. So I got to take that in consideration, which It doesn't really matter, as long as this edge matches that edge, we should be in good shape. Let me know in the comments below, what do y'all think so far? So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna leave it like this, and then I'm just gonna cut it straight across. All right, so we're gonna start getting everything ready for the Bondo to apply it all the way around the edges. The Bondo that I use is the high bond filler. I kind of like it a little bit better than the original Bondo. It doesn't set up quite as fast for me here. I guess it just all depends on where you live and the humidity and all that. So everybody has their own preference. One thing I want to say, and that Bondo does recommend, is that you do not mix this on any cardboard or any other surface that's not clean. So if you contaminate the Bondo, it won't stick to whatever surface you're putting it on. So you want to make sure that you do it on a clean surface. I know there's a lot of people that are out there that it doesn't matter to them, but for me, I want to make sure that I get the correct adhesion to my surface. The other thing too is to make sure that on your hardener, you make sure that you get it all mashed up. So what you don't want is water looking stuff to come out. So make sure that you knead this. You can take all the air out of it and then close the cap and then just kind of smush it up like if you would do some toothpaste. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put about a 3-inch circle of Bondo, and about half of that circle I'm gonna use the hardener, and that's kind of a good ratio to have. The other thing is I got a couple trials that I like to use. I know some people like to use the plastic. I do not like to use the plastic because it's just hard to clean up. If you're doing multiple projects, you can't just reuse that same Bondo spreader. It's hard to clean, and I don't like it. So if you like those, then more power to you. The other thing, what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply this by hand. So the only time I'm gonna be using the mixing tools is to mix up the Bondo, and then I'm gonna use my hands to put it on the surface. And the other thing too, when you're doing this, when you're doing a rock edge, you could get away with making a lot more Bondo. I'm probably gonna make a little bit more. It is cool here today. It's probably about 60 degrees. But that's way more than I would use if I was having to trowel it on for a smooth edge. So I'm just gonna run with that. Now the other thing that's a good tip for you is that you do not want to stir this. When you stir it, you entrain bubbles, and when you go to sand it, you'll see them. So what you want to make sure you do is you knead this kind of like if you were baking. You just want to knead that Bondo and make sure that you get it all even when you put the hardener in. So what we're going to be looking for is we're going to be looking for a nice blue, pretty hue on this Bondo. As you can see, that's one thing I do like about this Bondo that we get, is it comes with a color hardener. Yes, you can go buy extra color hardeners with the other Bondo, but why, right? When it already comes with it, you can use this. It works really good, and I just like the color versus the cream color, because you don't know how much hardener you're really mixing, if it's gonna set up fast or quick. You can really tell when you're mixing it if it's gonna set up fast or maybe not so much. So what I like to do is get this and put a line about halfway of what I mix in my paper here. So now what I'll do is I'll just get it, and then I'm just gonna mix this up, and you can see how it's starting to turn a pretty blue color. And you just gotta make sure that you're mixing it thoroughly go from both sides, flip it over. Make sure that you take what's on your trowel off, because it's the same with the epoxy, right? If you don't mix your edges and all that, you're gonna have some sticky spots. So we don't wanna have that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's a nice blue tint to it. So here we go. We're just gonna use this just to get it off the trowel. The thing that you're gonna have to just remember is you don't have to use a whole lot of Bondo. Really, you just want it to get on the surface. I make sure that I get it up on the top too, because you can always sand that down, but that's gonna give you some good effects when you're pouring that epoxy. And see, you can use your hands to rub it. Depends on what kind of look you're going for. But I just want to make sure I get it in all the cracks. Is if you don't like it, once it's dry, well then you can come back and do another application on there. This is looking pretty good. All right, so the rock edge is done. Next, we'll put the fiber mesh on top, put some clear epoxy to glue the fiber mesh to the styrofoam. And then after that dries, then what we'll do is pour the color coat, and then we'll cover it with UTC, and then it'll be good to go. Okay, so we have, I waited overnight just to make sure that the bond will really set up. So now what I'm gonna do is with the 120 orbital sander, I'm gonna just knock off the edges real quick, and then we're gonna get ready to put the fiber mesh on there. One thing you have to do also is flip the foam over, and then just make sure that you just get all the little just the little burrs that are on the bottom side from the Bondo, and you'll have them in periodically. So just go back over that, sand it all the way down, just where it's nice and smooth. That'll help you. So when you pour the epoxy, that epoxy that'll go past that, and you don't have to do a lot of sanding. Especially you have to be very careful with this foam, since it is, it's not like wood, you can burn through it. So it's the backside, but you still want to make sure that you get as smooth as possible. That way it'll be easy for cleanup. All right, we got the panels in the shop now. We are gonna be using this fiber tape. You can buy it on our website, RK3 Designs. It's a 36 by 75 foot roll of mesh, and they use it for drywall and stuff, and you can see it just looks like the little tape of drywall tape, but this just comes in a 36-inch piece. You can see here. So this is gonna be one swipe all the way down. I am gonna bring it over about 1/4 of an inch inside, and I'm gonna cut it about 1/4 of an inch on the inside. That way you don't have the little fiber mesh, just the little strings hanging out on each side. It just helps when you're sanding it and everything. It just makes it a little easier to keep it clean on your edges. So let's go ahead and open this new roll up. We'll roll it out and see what we got. So what I think I'm gonna do before I roll it all out, I'm gonna roll it out, what I'm saying. See if I can get it straighter that way. I think that looks pretty good. And then you just want to work it all the way down. And try to get it as level as possible. Because if not, then you're going to have to sand it after you put the first coat of epoxy on it. And it kind of makes it a pain. But if you just go down the row, and you can see here, there's no bubbles or you know, it doesn't get on top of each other. Laid out really nice, and that's what you want. You want to just make sure that it doesn't have any of these, you could see here, that just sometimes the epoxy gets underneath it, and then you have a hard time keeping that down. But other than that, you can sand it after. It's not that big of a deal, but you try to keep that to a minimum. All right, so now we'll cut the edges all the way off, and like I said, I'll come in maybe about a 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Keep it inside the panel. That way, so when we pour the epoxy, you see how these little hairs, it's just a pain and it's hard to sand after it's done. So you want to keep it inside, is what I found. It makes it a little easier, and then you have that nice edge. This one, it really doesn't matter because, oh no, this is the back side on this side. But on the front, you want to make sure that it stays on the inside of that panel. So let's go ahead and cut it. All right, so what you want to do to help you out is use some kind of straight edge to cut this stuff. It'll just help you out in the long run. So what I'm going to do is just kind of trace it just a little. We're going to go a little bit at a time. I'm going to go to about right. You know what? I can bring it back. Well, since this is not straight, I'm not going to go straight. We're just going to follow it. So you can see that just makes it a clean. You're not going to have all those little hairs sticking out past that. So what I will do now is just go down the edges and do it all the way around.
All right, so for the first layer of epoxy that we're going to do over the fiberglass mesh, we're just going to use the regular Stone Coat Countertop Epoxy, and we're going to be adding our thickener to it. The regular epoxy is 1:1, and we're doing 3 ounces per square foot. All right, so after we mix for 2 minutes, I'm going to come in and scrape the edges of my bucket. What this does is ensure that the product that's on the side of the bucket that may not have been mixed up thoroughly is incorporated into the rest of the material. That way, when I get ready to pour all my material out of my bucket, I'm gonna make sure I don't have any sticky spots. All right, now we're gonna add the thickener. And we're just gonna add the thickener until it gets to the point where it feels like thick syrup. We don't want it super thick, but we'll just kind of feel the drill as it's working in the epoxy and just kind of get that feel of when it starts to get thick.
So you can see how it builds up on itself. It doesn't just fall right through. And that's about where you need it.
Okay, we've spread it out evenly over the surface. We will torch it lightly to get the bubbles out, and we'll let it set for 24 hours. Then we'll go to the next step, which will be to paint the base color, and then we'll do our first color coat.
All right, now the epoxy is dry. As you can see, I've taken it off the table, and now we have little stuff that we just need to sand off, and then I need to sand off the top just so it'll have a mechanical bond to the paint. So that's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna sand all the edges, sand the tops of all 3 of these, and then we're gonna paint them. So we're gonna use a 120 pad with the orbital sander, and then I'm just gonna knock these edges off right here just to That way, so when we pour it, this is not gonna get in the way. That epoxy will run over the top, over the side, and underneath, kind of like this has. So what we're gonna do is just sand this off and get it ready for paint. So you can see that edge is nice and smooth now, and we'll be good to go. So don't worry about when you're doing this, if you have a bunch of spill, because we didn't elevate this, we just left it flat on the tables just because it makes it easier for this to keep everything flat. So we'll just take that with the sander and go all the way around. So there you go. So we got all 3 boards ready to go. So we're gonna paint this with the Behr paint and primer marquee with the white. So we're gonna paint all 3 of those white, let those dry for 24 hours, and then come back and we'll be ready to pour our first coat of epoxy. Or the second coat, I guess the color coat is what you would say. All right, here we go. So if you want a little fun fact, keep your roller in the paint bucket, and that way you can use it throughout the lifespan of the paint. And you can mix this up real good, kind of get it started. You can bring it out, push it all the way in, and now you don't have to be going through rollers every time you use your paint. What we're gonna do now is just roll on a good coat of paint on this. The main thing is you wanna make sure that you have good coverage throughout your piece, even though you're not gonna see a lot of it, but it's always good to be safe than sorry.
Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video where Kenny took you through the first part of the steps on how to measure and fabricate the shower walls. If you're interested in seeing part 2, where we actually pour the design and install them, check out the link in the description and check out the videos that will be uploaded next week. All right, guys, until then, you know what to do. Remember, don't be scared, move forward, and be creative.